with US President Joe Biden, his wife and the First Lady Jill Biden. They exchanged gifts. Prior to that, he also met with leaders from business community, held a mega event, a yoga event on the day of the International Yoga Day. It was marked by presence from people from all across the world. It is a buzzing visit of the Prime Minister. We continue to bring you all the updates here right now on Newsline. With me at this point in time in the studio, my colleague Sanjay Malhotra. Also joining us is Amit Ranjan. I'm given to understand we also have Srinath Sridharan joining us, but let me quickly bring this conversation first to you, gentlemen. This is the day 2. We're bringing updates from day 2. We also brought all the updates from day 1. We will, of course, go through them. But again, a very buzzing, busy schedule for the Prime Minister.
A busy schedule, and I'm most excited, obviously, about the busyness that comes by way of business and business meetings, and I'm sure Srinath is also going to agree and add value to that. But I think 3 very important meetings. Number 1, Micron. Micron a day prior had already committed to make investments in India's semiconductor industry. Now this, of course, is an industry which is relevant to India. It is relevant to the whole world, given the fact that we have thus far been dependent on countries like Taiwan and China when it comes to semiconductors. But about 2 years ago, India had embarked on that mission to invest about 10,000 crore rupees in developing India's own self-reliance in semiconductors. And this seems to be among the first big investments which are happening in the space. Micron has decided to invest about 1,100 crore rupees and an equal amount being parked by the government of India through the PLI incentive of another 1,100 crore rupees, making this the first big semiconductor plant in the state of Gujarat in India as a country. So this, of course, is one of the biggest highlights coming out from day 2 meeting, specifically because he met Sanjay Malhotra, the CEO of Micron. In addition to that, of course, closely connected is also Applied Materials. Applied Materials is a company that makes the software as well as certain hardware components like screens, computer screens, monitor screens, etc., which again play an important part in the overall electronics industry when you talk about manufacturing. So these are 2 important meetings. The third, of course, is the meeting with GE. Kalp Jr. has been met. And of course, GE, ahead of Prime Minister's state visit, had decided to supply engines to India's Tejas, which is developed by HAL. So aviation space, and GE, in addition to aviation, is also a big player in the energy space. So when we talk about renewable energy, which India has a target to produce 500 gigawatts of renewed electric electricity by 2030, it's a great step in that direction as well. So 3 big meetings. And of course, in addition to that, the meeting with Joe Biden, Jill Biden and the family, and of course the layout of dinner and the exchange of gifts. Of course, that is standard practice. But on the business front, I think these are 3 very prominent
very
meetings.
crucial second day meetings which continued overnight. It was a very packed schedule for the Prime Minister. I want to quickly specifically touched upon semiconductor, Amit, and this is going to be not a manufacturing facility, it's going to be a packaging and testing facility.
Packaging and testing. Okay, one, it is apart from the $2.7 billion plant, it's going to add 5,000 jobs, just this plant.
Okay,
to
wonderful.
India. That is one. Now just see how it has played out. In May, China accused Micron of failing their security reviews and barred their local infrastructure players to purchase products from Micron. So that is how it played out, and now this is basically and it irked the Biden administration because Micron is their biggest chip maker, memory chip maker. So that is how things have played out, and India has taken advantage of it. And overnight, basically, the PLI was put through, and this has happened. So yeah, so it's a testing and packaging plant to start with. It's the first fillip to basically the semiconductor industry, and adding if you add to that what Applied Materials does, so basically it's a whole linkage that we are putting together in India in this space.
Okay, let's quickly play up that bite of Micron Technology CEO Sanjay Malhotra when he spoke after meeting with Prime Minister.
Had an excellent meeting with Prime Minister Modi. Very impressed with the vision that he has for India and the advances that India is making. We discussed a wide range of topics, and we really look forward to greater opportunities in India. Micron is a global leader in memory and storage, and we are a supplier to for memory and storage in all end markets, from data centers to smartphones to PCs, and today really fueling the AI engine as well. So we are excited about the opportunities that exist for the future of memory and storage. And again, congratulations to Prime Minister Modi on his excellent visit here. So far, it's going great from my understanding, and I wish him and India all the best.
All right, that of course is Sanjay Malhotra talking about his meeting with the Prime Minister. We also have Srinath Sridharan joining us on the bulletin. Srinath, thank you, appreciate your time. I want to quickly begin with the semiconductor space in particular, because India achieves and hopes to achieve a capacity that has so far been obstructed and blocked by lack of technology. But with Micron now setting shop in India, and that's the likelihood, of course, in Gujarat, all that roadblock could be cleared in possible future time.
See, I think, Shweta, you're very, very bullish. I mean, when you're talking about as if one single deal is going to open up the entire spectrum for India, I would be a little more cautious. I think what the Prime Minister has done is phenomenal, like a true global business leader would do, right? I mean, they would lead from the front and go and pitch to the client. And this is exactly what he has done. He has pitched the India story consistently. And he's gone and sold the idea of making India as a large manufacturing base. I think it's a job well begun, but what happens when reality bites? The downstream handling of such clients when they come to India to scout land across various states. Of course, this being Gujarat is almost like a home turf, if I can say it. But what about other states? I mean, India is not just about Gujarat. We also need other states to get investments in. What happens if the handling of the bureaucratic handling of such companies and local officials, when I say local officials, not at the state level, at the district level, don't fit in the pitch that the Prime Minister has given? This still continues. Also, the issues of labor laws will still need to be kind of unshackled. And this is where I want to bring in the concept of social cost of technology. Manufacturing has brought in so much of automation that you cannot really employ thousands and millions of workers in the factory. So how are we going to balance that political optics of saying we have a great large semiconductor plant, but a plant can run with just 100 people in it and produce billions of dollars of exports? How are we going to handle it politically? And that's a challenge that we still haven't grappled. To me, the entire concept of PLI is a great concept. We are giving incentives, but it is really not taken on scale because of some of these issues. So I think semiconductor is a great start. We need it. Our consumption on semiconductor as a value additive is increasing and will increase for the next 20 odd years. We will need more and more brands to come in, but we don't necessarily have them yet until we solve for non-Gujarat manufacturing outside of other states.
Let's quickly play up a bite of Prime Minister Modi that we're getting at this point in time. Modi, of course, met with all those big leaders and spoke to media thereafter. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, Dr. Panjanathan, Mr. Malhotra, Dr. Williams, ladies and gentlemen, my dear young friends, मैं बहुत खुश हूँ कि आज वाशिंगटन आते ही मुझे इतने यंग और क्रिएटिव माइंड्स के साथ जुड़ने का मौका मिला है। नेशनल साइंस फाउंडेशन के साथ मिलकर भारत कई प्रोजेक्ट्स पर काम कर रहा है, इसलिए ये वेन्यू भी विशेष है। डॉक्टर बाइडेन, आपका जीवन, आपके प्रयास और आपकी उपलब्धियां सभी के लिए प्रेरणा का स्रोत है। हमारी वर्तमान और आने वाली पीढ़ियों को एक बेहतर भविष्य सुनिश्चित करने के लिए यह हम सभी का दायित्व है। इस उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए आवश्यक है एजुकेशन, स्किल, इनोवेशन, और भारत में हमने इस दिशा में कई प्रयास किए हैं। हमने नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में शिक्षा और स्किलिंग को इंटीग्रेट किया है। हमने स्कूलों में लगभग 10,000 अटल टिंकरिंग लैब्स उसकी स्थापना की है, जहां बच्चों को तरह तरह के इनोवेशन करने के लिए सभी प्रकार की सुविधाएं दी जा रही हैं। हमने युवा एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को प्रोत्साहित करने के लिए स्टार्टअप इंडिया मिशन शुरू किया है। हमारा लक्ष्य इस डेकेड को टेक डेकेड या टेकेड बनाने का है। फ्रेंड्स, आज भारत और अमेरिका को ग्रोथ का मोमेंटम बनाए रखने के लिए एक पाइपलाइन ऑफ टैलेंट उसकी भी जरूरत है। जहां एक और अमेरिका के पास उच्च कोटि के शिक्षण संस्थान है, एडवांस टेक्नोलॉजीज है, वहीं भारत के पास विश्व की सबसे बड़ी युवा फैक्ट्री है। और इसलिए मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत और अमेरिका की साझेदारी सस्टेनेबल और इंक्लूसिव ग्लोबल ग्रोथ का इंजन साबित होगी। अमेरिका में कम्युनिटी कॉलेज द्वारा निभाई जा रही अहम भूमिका के लिए मैं हृदय से आप सबका बहुत बहुत अभिनंदन करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका के बीच शिक्षा और रिसर्च में आपसी सहयोग के लिए मैं जरूर कुछ विचार साझा करना चाहता हूं। इस साझा प्रयास में जरूरी है कि गवर्नमेंट, इंडस्ट्री, एकेडेमिया, टीचर्स और स्टूडेंट्स सभी को शामिल किया जाए। एक इंडिया यूएस टीचर्स एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत के विषय हम सोच सकते हैं। दुनिया भर में फैले साइंटिस्ट और एंटरप्रेन्योर्स का भारत के संस्थानों के साथ एंगेजमेंट बढ़ाने के लिए हमने 2015 में ज्ञान ग्लोबल इनिशिएटिव ऑफ एकेडमिक नेटवर्क अभियान शुरू किया था। मुझे बताते हुए खुशी है कि इसके तहत अब तक यूएस से 750 फैकल्टी मेंबर्स भारत आ चुके हैं। मैं यूएस में शिक्षा और रिसर्च से जुड़े सर्विंग और रिटायर्ड लोगों से अनुरोध करूंगा कि वे अपनी छुट्टियां, खासतौर पर विंटर ब्रेक, भारत में बिताएं। वे भारत को जाने भी और भारत की नई पीढ़ी के साथ अपना ज्ञान भी बांटें। आप भी जानते हैं कि युवाओं की क्रिएटिविटी और इनोवेशन का जो स्पिरिट है वो अद्भुत होता है। मुझे लगता है कि दोनों देशों को मिलकर अलग अलग विषयों पर हैकाथॉन भी करना चाहिए और इससे हमें आज की कई समस्याओं के समाधान भी मिल सकते हैं और भविष्य के लिए नए आइडियाज भी। हम वोकेशनल स्किल क्वालिफिकेशंस के म्यूचुअल रिकग्निशन के बारे में भी जरूर विचार कर सकते हैं।
All right, that was Prime Minister Modi after his address with students, both Indian and American students, meeting that happened at National Science Foundation. He was present there, of course, meeting with students, asking them to come and visit India. He was also talking about India's next decade to be the tech decade, and that, of course, is the projection. Talked about a pipeline of talent that India is trying to build. Startup India, education, skills remain key focus areas for India at this point in time. Let me quickly get in Atul Singh Bhasko, who is the editor of Fair Observer, joining us on the bulletin. Atul, appreciate you taking time out. I want to understand what's the mood like in the US right now. It's the second day is concluded. We are hoping the third day would be as busy as the first two. But what meetings are in the pipeline? What's the mood like?
First, my name is Atul Singh. I'm the founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Fair Observer. So, not Atul Singh Bhaskar, a tiny correction there. Second, the mood in Washington depends on who you speak to. So, the mood in the DC bubble is very much one of interest. the foreign policy community views India as a rising superpower or a rising great power, not quite a superpower yet, but a rising great power. And they are betting big on business opportunities in India. It's a large market, it's a growing market, it has a young population, it has a rising middle class, it has massive infrastructure development, which will have a multiplier effect, and it is part of China Plus One strategy. So the mood in the DC, and DC is really a small town, so the mood in the DC professional, diplomatic, business, intelligence, and military community is really one of opportunity. The mood amongst the Indian Americans, of course, is far more euphoric, because for them, it's a matter of great pride that an Indian Prime Minister is having a state visit, having the red carpet rolled out to him. And the Prime Minister also does a good job reaching out to non-resident Indians. He's, after all, a Gujarati, which has had a large diaspora over the centuries. So he's culturally much more familiar with non-resident Indians, with the diaspora, than, let's say, somebody from Uttar Pradesh, where I originally come from.
All right, Atul, of course, a sense of euphoria amongst Indian diaspora, especially Gujarati diaspora living in the US. But I want to quickly bring in an important, interesting point that was mentioned by Srinath, and that is with respect to India's preparedness. While we're talking about large investments from Tesla to Micron, how prepared are we in India in terms of reforms? And you coming from UP, which is a state which many would say is a laggard when it comes to reforms. How prepared are we on from land reforms to reforms, when we talk about larger business space in India?
I would say that some states are doing well. India has many stories going on at the same time. There is the India story, but then there are the sub-India stories. So would Gujarat be able to handle the investment? Of course, Gujarat has been entrepreneurial going back to the Indus Valley civilization. You have Lothal, you have Dholavira, you have coins from Mesopotamia. And of course, all through medieval times, Gujarati merchants were the kings of the Arabian Sea. So Gujarat will be fine. Tamil Nadu will be fine. I'm sure a few other states might be all right, but a number of states are not efficient enough. Land and labor problems are huge. Yes, we are sorting out our infrastructure problems, and we can thank the government for it. Nitin Gadkari has done a great job building roads, and of course we've built ports, there are airports, and even power has improved. But, and here's the big but, we still have an overweening bureaucracy, and entrepreneurs like me don't want to deal with it. So we want, or the business community, of course, wants to come to India. But within India, there'll be competition for investment. There'll be winners and there'll be losers. And as far as I'm concerned, states like UP are much better. There is order now under Yogi Adityanath, the chief minister, but there isn't yet a modernization of the apparatus of the state. So the IAS in UP still behave like gods. And no one wants to deal with gods when someone is doing business. People want to deal with public servants, good servants of the state, not masters of the universe. And that is a big problem.
Okay. Fair enough. Interesting point there. But there are states that are doing well, and Gujarat being one. Gujarat being the epicenter for development, followed by perhaps Tamil Nadu, Kerala, where you see investments coming in. But for other states, it is still a far-fledged sort of an opportunity that they're trying to get in as and when they can. But it's not going to be an easy road ahead.
So see, we have been trying to work on ease of doing business in India, and of course you mentioned Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, but you've also got a state like let's say Maharashtra, which attracts investments. You see a state like Uttar Pradesh, which is now opening up to multiple other industries, including toys, films, and a lot more. We've seen one of the largest malls come up in Lucknow, the Lulu Mall. So I think overall the climate is getting better. And that is what we need to pin our hopes on. I mean, it's easy for us to sit in studios and criticize the government, which we often do when it is needed. But from where we were to where we are and where we are heading, I think that trajectory seems all right. Now, in terms of Micron setting up plants, I'll go back to the point that Srinath was making earlier. I mean, even if it employs 100 people, though I think Amit said about 5,000 people are likely to get employed.
Right.
But even if we were to see that automation is completely in the shop floor, and you have fewer number of people being employed, employment is just one of the things that we tend to lose out on or gain very little incrementally on. But you are sort of relinquishing your dependence on the rest of the world,
Right.
On China, on Taiwan, for semiconductors. So the case in point here of Micron, I think I would welcome it wholeheartedly, because at least it is an initiation of a mission that we had set out for ourselves, and saying that we are going to be self-reliant when it comes to semiconductors. I understand one factory is not going to do it, right? It'll only have limited capacity.
But it does
It's
boost
going to
sentiments.
It'll boost sentiment, and it'll take a few years for that factory also to start producing and delivering what is expected of it. But you know, one comes, like you said, it boosts sentiments. It opens up the opportunity for many more to also partake. So on that point, I think slight disagreement, Srinath. While a lot more needs to be done, but I believe that that we are at least heading in the right direction finally. And with the greenbacks coming back into the Indian economy, I think our overall export potential also increases.
Srinath, let me quickly get a reaction from Srinath first. Yes.
Yeah, Karthik, I mean, while I think we should celebrate every single company or factory setting shop, there is a far deeper, wider problem that we still don't want to talk about it for political optics. That our Indian productivity is very, very low compared to a lot of other markets, including Vietnam. Our power tariffs are far more expensive than Vietnam, forget China. The turnaround time in our ports is far slower than markets, including Bangladesh. And let me address productivity being very, very low. And there's a mindset issue to it, right? Traditionally, India has been a very large domestic consumption market, but with lower ticket size capability. As well as we always accepted, when I say we, more the entrepreneurs who had factories and businesses, that trade barriers will be there, and we are okay with poor or low quality and longer wait times. I mean, people would talk with pride that they waited for 10 years to get a landline, wait for 10 years to get a Bajaj scooter. Guess what has happened? I mean, in the digital space, we have moved far quicker, that everything is on demand. But unfortunately, somewhere there's a thinking that low labor cost and high interest rates have hurt our arithmetic around automation. Which means that if you want, let's say, the Indian manufacturers, let's go back to the top 100 Indian manufacturers and say, can you invest money in automation and scale more? Guess what they've done over the last 15 years? They've actually set up shops in ASEAN region. They've gone to other markets to buy out companies, because they've also de-risked the India strategy. So I think it's, from a business strategy point of view, it's a great move, because they're closer to the markets that they serve. But if we are going to accept automation, we will also have to then look at developing our SME and MSME cluster development, something what China and Korea have done very, very well over the last 30 years. How do you support a large factory from the vendor base? We need our SMEs and MSMEs to talk the local language. I think a good start was the RAMP scheme that the government announced in the previous year's budget of 5,000 odd crores. But I think that number needs substantial hike. And probably the MSME and SME, because they're so far and fragmented, we will need many SROs to come into the table. Self-regulatory organizations, skill development, export-orientedness. To your point, Karthik, about exports can increase only when our downstream vendors can actually think the same language of quality and productivity. Our productivity, unfortunately, is very, very low, and which is why a lot of manufacturing bugs don't come in. Okay. It's not about cheap land, it's not about incentives, it's none of those. You can throw under 10% tax break also, but it's a lot more about productivity.
Okay, but how do we improve that? Of course, enabling SMEs is obviously, I completely agree with you, Srinath, but then SMEs will be further incentivized only when there is a big factory being set up in India, that they become potential vendors too. And I think overall, with global competition coming, And overall, with global brands setting up their shop in India, it builds a case for the productivity that you talk about to also increase. Otherwise, they are going to look at vendors outside of India, and their investments in India are not going to be sustained. So overall, the whole ecosystem would build only if that confidence is there, that there is a big plant being set up that the SME needs to supply to. And that is the celebration that I'm talking about. Of course, we know there are inherent challenges, but perhaps not the same level of challenges that we faced pre-license Raj or even in the 1990s. Things are definitely improving. If not the best in the world yet, we are definitely shoring up these skills to try and become the best.
Fair enough. I think from the license Raj, if you think license Raj has gone away, no, I don't think so. I think talk to any SME guy, access to credit is still a challenge, access to the local rules and regulations and rule book being thrown at him for every small minor infraction, and corruption still does rule there. Yes, a great thing is the decriminalization of a lot of rules and regulations have happened consciously at the national level. But again, how do we bring it down to the local level? That's a challenge. The largest, I think, labor reform that we will need is cluster ownership, right? Bulk of Indian SME or manufacturing is concentrated on firms with less than 20 workers. It's a license Raj thinking of where your taxation is lower and you've been able to do away with certain regulations, including simple things like PF being provided and stuff like that. But whereas if you look at how China or Korea or Vietnam have grown, is bulk of their SMEs are about 1,000 employees, 1,000 workers or more. I think that's where we'll have to change our rules and regulations. How do we enable our SME? Just because we have the word called small doesn't mean that they have to stick to a family kind of setup, right? They can grow to a large number of workers. And that's a big challenge that we need to bring in. And again, access to credit, while we have been doing a lot of those conversations, I think it's also the inherent nature of Indian banking system. Globally, the large corporates and governments don't borrow from their own banking system, they borrow from the bond markets. Whereas in India, our banking system is so skewed towards the government of India being one of the largest debt kind of borrower in the domestic debt market, and the large corporates, the individuals and the SMEs are kind of nudged out. I mean, you can show me all the statistics that we will throw saying that we have been helping MSME and SME, but I think a lot more needs to be done. I think we probably need to bring in a 5 or 6% compulsory ratio that all banks should have MSME exposure, apart from what we do as priority sector lending. I mean, if we are focused on MSME,
isn't that the double-edged sword that banks at one end need to control their NPAs and their exposure to risky loans being given out, and yet have a mandate of X amount only to be given to SMEs? While I agree with you, see, I think fundamentally we had focused for the last 2 decades or so, maybe more than that, on our services side. While we had pretty much accepted defeat to China being the manufacturing factory of the world, India had played its cards well on the services side. Now we are looking at making that pivot. If not a pivot, we are looking at adding manufacturing in as much capacity as services to give a boost to the economy. So the land reforms, the labor reforms, of course, are work in progress, and it's not going to change overnight. And I agree with you, and I'm completely with you when you say that these are problems and these are challenges that we face here in India. But I think that pivot from services to manufacturing and adding manufacturing along with services is going to be something that we have to tread on and achieve as we move along. But there is also this issue of banks keeping their books clean, absolutely pristine, and we've seen NPAs coming down, by way of which SMEs are indeed looking outside of banks and picking up more expensive loans to credit their growth or finance their growth. So I think these are challenges, and we will have to see how we tide over every one of them. But to be in a situation that let's not attract international investments until we have sorted all these issues out, I think would set us back another couple of years, if not decades. So the two will have to work hand in hand, in my mind.
That's true, absolutely. I think three will have to work hand in hand. I mean, I'm adding the third layer, which is the state. At every state, here it's the central government, the Prime Minister himself leading from the front. and bringing in, let's say, the accounts or the order book, so to speak. But the states have to translate that into reality. And the third one is the Indian industry, which is the value chain, SMEs and MSMEs. I'm not worried about the first or the third. The state is the challenge. A lot of states still don't have their core proposition of what is it that they will do in their state. What is the sector or what is the industry that they will build? And which is what I earlier alluded to, cluster type of development. What kind of MSMEs and SMEs do we need to build in, let's say, Maharashtra, in Gujarat, in Tamil Nadu? If each of these states bases its skill set, its talent pool availability, and the weather patterns and the availability of natural resources, if they can have a strategy, so to speak, I think why do we then need to speak only about a Gujarat or a Maharashtra or a Tamil Nadu? I mean, all our states and union territories can deliver global products. That's a reality.
Okay. Interesting proposition. State should be a focus. Focus, of course, should be to roll out red carpet. You know, shifting focus back to more business leaders that Modi met. One of them was, of course, the CEO of Applied Materials. And I want to quickly get in Krishna's reaction on this. Krishna, they announced an innovation center in India. Now, Srinath is of the belief that unless we mitigate some homegrown challenges, they look like big promises on the book, but do not really translate into investments, job or opportunities for people. I think that's a valid concern. But at the same time, when a global CEO, makes a promise on India and bets on India, that of course is good news.
Oh, definitely. And India has a potential to be a global research and development hub and innovation hub. That's been said time and again. But as you're rightly pointing out, so much has been said about it, but not being done enough. In fact, if you take a look at the papers today, Hyderabad has got to two companies investing in R&D centers in Hyderabad. And that's the kind of future that we're looking at. So the fact that the head honcho of Applied Materials has gone ahead and announced it, to me, doesn't come as a surprise, because there are so many companies from all kinds of sectors, from technology to pharmaceuticals to other fields, who are looking to set up their research and development and innovation centers here in India. Some of them already have, and there is huge potential, and just not enough has been done about it. Because even in Chennai, for that matter, you keep talking about Tamil Nadu, not enough research and development hubs are being set up in a tech capital like Chennai, not even Bengaluru for that matter, not enough. There are sporadic developments of R&D and innovation centers in India, but the news coming in from the US should encourage more and more global multinational companies to set up their research and development and innovation centers here in India, because of the kind of talent that's available over here, the educated, skilled talent to work in innovation centers and research and development centers and academic talent that's available here in India, and that needs to be leveraged. And you're seeing more and more companies looking to come to India for it, Shweta. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that from now on, every day when you open the papers, you hear news about one company or the other, one global company or the other, setting up its research and development and innovation center here in India, Shweta.
Okay, so making a promise there, but not sure where they're going to set shop just as yet. There will be an announcement very soon from Applied Material. Let's quickly listen into that bite that's come in from the President CEO, Gary Dickerson, after he spoke to Prime Minister.
Opportunity for India's growth in the semiconductor industry is now. This is India's time to drive incredible growth. And Applied is very, very much looking forward to working together with the Prime Minister and everyone in India to achieve tremendous success together. India is a trusted partner, so I think whether it's Applied Materials or many companies around the world, they see the trust and also the tremendous talent that is there in India. And I just deeply believe this is India's time to shine. We will be announcing soon a new innovation center in India. With Applied Materials, we'll also bring global partners into this new innovation center. And this innovation center will really be focused on innovation in the equipment. And we have very high confidence.
Innovation in equipment, that of course is the big bite that's coming in from applied sciences, applied materials for that matter, not sciences, but applied material. We want to understand for the benefit of our viewers right now, what does it mean? What does applied materials setting a innovative center in India means for India?
So I think broadly they're talking about an R&D center. It's talking about what kind of new materials can be used in electronics, and really innovating on those materials and coming out with new solutions for the electronics industry. So I understand Applied Materials is a company that works on computer screens, works on monitor screens, and largely the outside material, the display material that goes into electronic components.
Making electronic
That's
components.
right, electronic goods.
Right.
So yeah, I think again we are talking about a pure science company investing, a pure innovation company investing in India, and yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with, let's say, Micron's investments. So it pretty much looks at the forward and the backward integration, where there is an outside casing and display screen manufacturer who also incidentally has a software arm which supplies software for microchips, and we are looking at Micron, which is a pure play semiconductor player. So overall, I think we are talking a good sort of scenario building up for the electronics industry from India.
And to my understanding, Amit, I think this is one of the biggest surprises and an announcement that could come in, because India lags majorly in R&D.
Yeah, in R&D and in microchip semiconductors industry, by 2026, the local demand for semiconductor chips, Indian demand, will be 64 billion. None of that is being made in India as of now. That's I'm talking to 2026. So there is a huge domestic market that companies can cater to. And I'll add to another thing with the coming of Micron. There are two Indian companies that are going into the microchip space, Tata's and Sahasra Semiconductors. Sahasra has one of its plants in Noida itself. So yeah, I believe, adding to what Srinath said, if it takes one big one to come for others to follow. And so it will not just be 5,000 jobs, it will be much more than that as things play out.
Okay. Let's quickly get Srinath here. Srinath, India has been hoping to get and make semiconductor in-house, in India, indigenously. There have been challenges, and some of these challenges are on the back of the lack of technology that many applicants have not been able to fulfill. There were, of course, certain obligations you had to fulfill in order to get the PLI scheme that was rolled out, or the incentive that was rolled out by the government of India to make semiconductors in India. Do you think that roadblock has sort of cleared now, or India has a long way to go before we start making semiconductors here?
So I think we're going to have some way to go before we start making our own semiconductor. I think the PLI scheme and the conditions that we have put up is to safeguard our own geopolitical interests, which I think are very, very fair. We can't be dependent on one single nation or one single manufacturer. But the larger, deeper root cause, I think if we analyze, goes to the fundamentals of the Indian engineering education. We all boast of the very, very popular or globally known Indian diaspora CEOs, all of them in areas of technology and banking and finance. Name one engineering leader that we keep talking about. We churn out, our IITs turns out a lot of engineers, and most of them seem to become actually bankers and financiers. Engineers rarely stay the course. I think we'll have to introspect, saying how many patents do we file? Why are our patents in single and triple digit from IITs, and why not in 4 and 5 digits? I think that's the fundamental nature. While we might all think NEP will change the course, it is going to take under 5 to 10 years before we can see these patents coming ahead. And also, I think somewhere what the government had spoken last year about reforming the Indian Patent Office, the way it functions, and to fast track patents is something that we still need to see much of results. A lot of conversations have happened around it, but we don't see results as of yet. Classic case in point, a LG or a Samsung based out of Bangalore churn out a lot more patents sitting out of India. But guess where they're all registered? In the US, not in India. So something is fundamentally wrong. We need to connect research and development as a skill set in our education base, which we don't have. And let's also face it, corporates do not invest a lot of money on R&D. That's a reality. It's almost like lazy taxation. Everybody would say, give me a tax break and I'll do something about it. But we don't have great R&D effort. And so I want to just leave it open. Is it because of our Jugaad mindset? Jugaad is not innovation. Jugaad is a quick fix. Is it because Jugaad worked for us for so long that we still get carried away, but we will get away with the scenario? I think we'll have to go to concentrated, design-led innovation as a mindset rather than just Jugaad. I think that's where our fundamental challenge is.
Okay. Interesting. Jugaad is not innovation. It's a quick fix.
It's
While
a
we
quick
take
fix.
we take a lot of pride in being a society that believes in Jugaad, which is quick fixes, we're not really innovating as much. And he talked about patent. Of course, Srinath pointed as to the problems with India's patent industry. There's also, as we were discussing, a problem with India's R&D. There is the concept of brain drain has not eluded us. It still continues to be prevalent. The moment you want to go for better studies, you go abroad. You want to make a career, you go abroad. You are always looking to go abroad, Karthik. So we haven't made incentivized living in India, making in India, manufacturing in India.
So I think product design has not been our focus, right? We have not been innovators. Look at the most innovative companies in the world. 3M is an American company, right? So as our mindset has been, cost efficiency, quick fixes. Obviously, Srinath is right. Jugaad has been very much part of our DNA. But look at the kind of investments that are coming into IITs now. If you were to look at 2 days ago, Nandan Nilekani announcing 315 crore rupees back to his alma mater, IIT Bombay. Now IIT Bombay intends to, in fact, the statement is that it intends to use that for research purposes. Now, will that research be electronics research, computer applications research, software research, or product research? I don't know. But yeah, I think there has to be greater industry participation in curriculum. There has to be more closely linked synergies between what industry wants and what industry should expect as the next level of product design, the next level of physical material technology, and whether our institutions are serving that or building an ecosystem to serve that at some point in the future. I mean, I've worked on shows, on series where we have gone and featured some fairly excellent innovations in innovation hubs or incubators at IITs across the country, and there have been some very promising designs. But you're right. I mean, they stay in those laboratories and seldom make it to market. So, but we have had some success, let's say, in the drone technology, where drones have been built and drone technologies have been built in IITs, have been taken to market. Materials, silk fibrion used in medical implants. So these are some very small innovations that have gone from India and have again been fostered not as much by Indian companies but by global companies, and the patents have been, or the technology or the ideas have been taken away from India. But again, an applied materials company setting up shop in India will look at innovations from across the world, including India, and with these investments, with these setting up of shops, there could be one window of opportunity for IIT laboratories and students filing for patents to look at investments from. And will that happen? When will that happen? Nobody knows. But the hope is that, yeah, with the focus shifting from services only to services plus manufacturing, and the world's focus shifting from China only to China plus one, there is going to be a better economic environment, business environment, innovation environment to foster such product design.
Okay, let's quickly also get in Atul for a final brief comment. Atul, it is a China plus one strategy, which essentially means we as a country are being projected as an alternative. We are hoping will be an alternative, and all these promises, regardless of the sentiment around how much it would be materialized, they look good. They augur well. This is a cause for euphoria, but also about sentiments that largely seem positive if you talk about the next 1 decade. Before I let you go, I want to understand from you, what's the day 3 looking like for the Prime Minister?
Well, it will be busy. It will be a number of meetings. It will be an event at the White House. But I'm not really that fussed about day 3. What is my concern, as someone who's studied the global economy for more than a decade, is that the next decade could be India's big opportunity. And the visit sort of is symbolic, because what is happening today, the respect in the Indian Prime Minister is being shown by the US President. is because the US sees India as a potential place to invest, as a potential place to have innovative talent. We've always sent CEOs to America, but they are planning to have innovation centers in India because the cost differential is. I have friends in the business, I've written extensively about it. I have Taiwanese friends who talk about not just having design in India, but factories. But Srinath is right. There are massive reforms we have to make. And
right. Well, massive reforms that we'll have to make. Atul, thanks very much for that. I think we will keep bringing all the updates throughout the day. That, of course, is the big plan. The agenda, of course, is to bring you all the updates from the US as Prime Minister makes his maiden US state visit. And second day, of course, was filled with meetings. He also met the President and First Lady. Gifts were exchanged. We couldn't bring you all that information, but all that and more will be coming up in the bulletin after this. Thanks very much for watching.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. This and more